I went to the same church my brothers went to because it was the only church I knew that laid hands on people. They laid hands on me and started praying and singing, speaking in tongues. And I know the road that I'm going to walk. And I know with you, I can do anything. I've done anything. And so whatever your will is, I accept. The moment I accept left my lips, this palm width beam of power came from that small hand on my back, beelined through my rib cage, split in two, and then hovered over both breast lumps for song. I remember being able to see it. It had like a pulse, like love itself was just flowing through me. And no one knew, no one knew other than me that what happened. That was Sunday. And then I was the very first person on Monday to go in. I remember walking in gowned up. It was a 3D mammogram, ultrasound for an emergency lumpectomy. As I'm preparing myself, trying not to faint, this doctor comes in. He kind of studied me and he said, "We have done every test that we can do. There are no breast lumps. There's nothing to find." And then he leaves the room.
Well, hello, Kara Marlene. Welcome to the show. I am truly honored by you joining me and looking forward to our conversation. How are you feeling today?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on with you. That's very kind of you.
Oh, it's very kind of you to join me. And every week we bring you powerful stories about life after death, awakening, and what it means to be human. And if that resonates, you'll love what's coming. Today, I'm joined by Kara Marlene, whose childhood NDE at age 8 opened into a realm she describes as the pure presence of love without fear, guided by a silent figure in a rectangle of living light. We're going to find out more about that. Now, decades later, her life unfolded into a string of love's miracles, including an unexpected documented healing related to genetic breast cancer risk in her early 30s. And this is a true miracle. You're going to love this. We'll explore the experience, the after effects, and how Kara now helps others choose love over fear in everyday life. So, Kara, it's a joy to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I'm very familiar with your story, and I just can't wait to share it with the folks. And it really has those two parts we just talked about. It's got that early NDE, and then later on, it has that true medical miracle. I mean, folks, I love it. I know the viewers love seeing and hearing these experiences. So thank you for joining us today. I would love to give the microphone and the stage right over to you to begin with your beautiful story.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. So it all begins when I was 8 years old. I was born and raised in a micro town in Kansas, and on a ranch outside of that with my little sister. One spring day, we were out riding our bikes. My older sisters were inside, and after a couple of hours, one of them came out and hollered at us to come inside. It's time for dinner or lunch. And I, of course, didn't want to. And so I thought I was going to take one more round on my bike. And my father owned a very large construction company. And next to our barn, there was a garage. We called it the tool shed. And there was what we call a water lip. It's like a piece of cement poured where the garage hits the door, or the garage door hits the ground to keep the water from coming in. And out of that was like a gouge. I don't know what happened, but in my 8-year-old head, I was like, oh, I'm going to ramp that with my bike and then I'll go inside, the whole rebellious thing. And so I started on the top of the hill and went as fast as I could towards that garage. And when my bike hit that gouge in that water lip, it stopped. And I went head over heels on the handlebars. And that's really where the story begins, because that's when I felt my awareness full throttle, completely open, and surround me in this bubble of protection. And I remember it all happened so fast. And I remember it's almost as if I remember hearing myself hit the floor and feeling my body crumble and let out the tiniest little sigh. I'll never forget it. But that sound, my head hit it, to this day, it's pretty awful. And I remember blacking out. When I woke up, I was kind of blinking myself awake, lying on my back, and I could see the outline of the garage door. And it was very bright, like blindingly bright. And I was trying to get myself together. And I realized something was terribly wrong because I couldn't move my body. It literally felt as if I was trapped in it, and it was like 1,000-pound weight. I could not move. There's just no way. And realizing that, I looked back at the light of the garage, and there was a figure there, and it was hazy. I couldn't tell if it was male or female, but I just assumed it was my sister because she was the only one with me. And so I knew I could look and I could move my mouth. And I said, I need help. Something's really wrong. I can't move. You need to go get mom and dad. And the figure didn't move, and she didn't move in my head. And so I got really scared. And so I got desperate. I said, Mom and Dad are going to be so mad at you. Like, you have to go help me. Like, I need help. And as I was speaking to her, just really pleading, who I thought was my sister, I remember my awareness kind of stepping back and taking in the scene. And eventually I stopped speaking because I was trying to look at the ceiling and the walls of the room I thought I was in. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized that that darkness wasn't darkness. It was blackness, and it was like space that goes on forever. And I looked back at the light, and I realized that I couldn't see past it. I couldn't see like the blue sky or the clouds or like the cattle trailer or whatnot, that I should have seen, like the barns. It was just blinding light. And all of a sudden it hit me that the light coming in wasn't sunlight. It was light and life itself. And then the darkness is the vastness of space that holds that. And realizing that, I looked up at that figure and I realized something. And I said, am I dying? Am I dead? Is this heaven? And inside of me, I call it the dwelling place, but I discovered that place where love's endless presence is. It only like cracked open, and like my oneness hit, and love, it was just like this outpouring of absolute love and oneness at one time. So it just went on as far and as vast as that darkness and that light could hold. And I realized, this is the purest presence of love. This is just love itself. And I just basked in that for a while. And I remember, my eyes going back to that figure, and it was fascinating because I heard it speak to me with my inner voice, and because it didn't speak to me with a voice, but it was my inner voice. I heard it, and it said, "Are you ready?" And being just basking in love and in that presence where, we go after we die. I was just like, I had the smallest life review, my parents, my dogs and things like that. And, I realized, yes. And so with my inner voice, I responded and I said, yes. And immediately, like body, mind, soul, spirit just fell into that love within. Just like, it's almost like I just collapsed into it. And there was a moment as I was falling into love, there was a space where, love was, and there was no fear. Like in the purest presence of love, there was no fear. It's like it couldn't even exist. Right. And so as I crossed over this threshold is where this threshold of fear could exist. And that was when I was coming into my body. I know that now. And I remember waking up, hours later, and on the couch speaking to my mother like I'm speaking to you. And I just stopped talking and I start asking her questions like, how did I get here? Where did I go? Like, and I started asking her about like the place I went and whatnot. And she got very confused and irritated, and she left, and ended up, I had a mirror in my hand, and I could see this part of my face, little second grader face, because I was about 8 years old. My sister was about 5. And, I remember tilting it, and I remember just screaming, because like if you put, let's say, a large lemon or an orange and cut it in half and put it on like a second grader's head, it was this huge, dark, almost black contusion on my head. And that's when, of course, my mother like took me in, because she's like, I wasn't acting right, as she said. And so I remember the doctor, never before and never after have I ever heard that doctor raise his voice to her, because like small town, 8 kids my mother had, like he raised all of them and he was so upset. He was like, why did you wait so long? She should be dead. Like she shouldn't be alive. Like if she gets hit on her head again, she'll like ever, she'll die. Like it's, she shouldn't be alive. So, I knew in that moment, I had died, and, something truly miraculous and magical happened, that I now know is a near-death experience. And, Brad, ever since that day, I was never the same. Like I came back different.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, it's interesting. Different NDEs go down different ways. They're all very unique, but they have commonalities, right?
Mm,
Sometimes they'll have a heart attack. They'll be in the hospital, and so they'll be on probes, and you can see that their heart stopped, and you can confirm
right.
that and whatever. So, in yours, it sounds like when you went over the bike, you must have hit like face first right into the concrete. That's why you kind of hit on the top of your head, and that would have completely knocked you out. Now, while
Yeah.
you're laying there, your heart is probably still beating, but regardless, you're out of body. And so,
Mm-hmm.
your little 8-year-old body is down there still keeping itself alive, pumping blood
Right.
and all that, but your consciousness is clearly gone. And
Yeah.
so that is that true NDE, regardless of heart
Mm-hmm.
capability or not, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now when you're on the other side, this part is then very consistent with others, which is that pure love feeling. And you know what I liked? The way you described it, you said, it's not possible that while you're on the other side to have fear. Your
Mm-hmm.
experience was you had no fear over there, and you were detecting that it couldn't even exist here. And
Yeah.
then as soon as you made your way back into the body, you found that, that is different now. There is plenty of
Mm-hmm.
fear over here.
Yes, absolutely. There's almost like the opportunity of fear in general, in this realm. And, after the NDE, growing up and experiencing life in itself, yes, there's an opportunity of fear, but outside of it, my experience after, I die, it will be the purest presence of love I step into. And whatever that looks like, I don't fear that.
Nice. And
Yeah.
when you're 8 years old, fear is very different than when you're, 28 years old or 48 years old. It's
Yeah.
a different kind of thing, especially when your sister or your parents are around. You kind of figure like, when you're that young in those wonder years, you feel like your parents can do anything. So
Mm,
as long as my parents are not, my mom is here, then I'm going to be fine.
right.
Even though once you looked in the mirror, you go, well, mom or not, I'm not fine.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
she finally brought you in. And so your doctor had some words with your mom. And so what do you think happened? Does your mom just have a lot of kids? She thought the swelling would go down. She thought this and that. So she kind of delayed in bringing you in.
Basically, the way it's told, after I went down, my little sister, about 5 years old, ran into the house, and she's like, "You have to help Kara. She's dead. Kara's dead. She's on the ground." And my mother and my 2 sisters, I mean, I think they just thought that she was kidding or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, I don't know what kids do. And because I loved being outside, so it's probably not abnormal for me to just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to be gone for a while. But no, like my mother said she knew my little sister was serious. Because when she found her in her room, just curled up in a ball crying because they just wouldn't listen to her, sweet thing. And, but it's really interesting because my sister, who never really talks about it, she was the one that, I think found me later, but, she was like, yeah, Bonnie just kept saying she's dead. Like, Kara's dead. Like she needs your help. She's dead. That was so random because it actually came later in life. Like we talked about, sometimes it brings up, it comes up in like family get-togethers and stuff like that. And we used to laugh about it, but until I shared that story with a friend, and that was when I knew I had an NDE. She's like, no, that's a near-death experience, Cara. I was like, oh no, I'm sure. She's like, you should probably research that. So
Oh, yes. Came to you
yeah,
later exactly what it was, because how would you know when you're 8, And what's
yeah,
funny is your younger sister was 5. And
yeah,
so when she comes in the house to explain this, it's a 5-year-old explaining that you're dead. Well,
yeah,
they don't really give you a lot of details, and and it's like it's not going to feel real potentially to your mom or maybe even to your
Right.
sisters. And so that's pretty interesting. But now let me make sure I understand this correct.
Mhm.
You're laying on the ground unconscious and you're
Mhm.
having an out of body experience. You're 5 and you're 8. Your
Yeah.
5-year-old sister runs in the house to explain this to your mom and that you're dead, and they're not buying it.
Yeah.
Your sister's like beside herself because they're not going outside to help you. So your
Mhm.
sister goes in her room and she's crying on the bed in her room while you're still laying outside on the
Yeah.
ground having a near-death experience. Oh my God, she must have felt so horrible, like
I know.
unempowered for sure. And then
Yeah.
maybe your mom kind of went and checked on the 5-year-old and said, wow, you really are having an experience. Maybe there's something really going on. Let's go check.
Yeah.
And they found you out there sort of lying there. And then
Mhm.
and then somehow they brought you in to the sofa, and that's when then you came back and you go, what happened?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, okay. Now, what happens next? Now you go to the doctor. What's the assessment?
So I am like on total lockdown. So I can't play. I can't like run or I definitely can't ride a bike. And so they're just basically watching me until they see like the after effects and whatnot. And so they're just basically checking on me. But I could not do like anything. They were very, very cautious, which is hard because one, I'm a pretty rambunctious kid. I like being outside and doing things. But two, like, having 8 kids, that's a lot to kind of watch for. So,
Oh yeah, yeah. You
yeah.
gotta survival is out of 8. If 7 out of 8 make it, that's pretty good odds, I guess.
Yeah,
So
no.
back in the day, growing up on the farm.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so that's physically what's happening. Now, what
Mhm.
happens to you, kind of emotionally, or maybe even spiritually, over those next days, months, years? Are you feeling
Mhm.
the effects of anything? Sensing some new abilities?
Yes. So thank you so much. I love that question. Yes. So basically, literally the moment I come back, my life is different. And I describe it as like, um, the unrelenting pursuit of love, the relentless pursuit of love in my life. And love made itself, when I say love, I mean like God or Gaia, spirit, whatever you call it, but I call it love. And love showed up in such tangible ways that are beyond contestation for me. And I call them the fingerprints of love. And they start with, I was very connected with nature, very connected with animals. And also I was just this walking ball of love. Like I just wanted to love everyone. I wanted to be everyone's friend. I wanted everyone to be connected. Like that was just my countenance after that. And I, found it wasn't, something I could talk about at home or like out in like real life. And so I ended up, just kind of not withdrawing, but a bit more, and again, in solitude, but that actually helped because every time love showed up in tangible ways. So for example, I predicted, the deaths of my loved ones, like 3 of them. I share this in my book for miracles and I go into more detail, and then I had a few small energetic healings, but, like I could hear the voice of love. One of the very first experiences with someone I love was my grandmother, and it was Thanksgiving, and I was on the couch, and love told me this was probably her last Thanksgiving, and I ran over to her and I got to say goodbye. And literally the next day, she was found. She had gone; she'd passed over, and then like a second one was a family friend, and the third was my brother-in-law, and all of this was a beautiful representation of how love spoke to me. Love connected with me. Love didn't just show up once in a near-death experience. It developed this relationship with me and love itself, and then gifts that came later. One of the energetic healings came at my grandmother's house, oddly enough, and then it would later on be climactic when I was diagnosed with 3rd-generation genetic breast cancer, and it was healed miraculously.
Right. Well, now that's amazing because then I'm also hearing you refer to this knowing or essence on the other side to love. Now,
Yeah.
some call it God, some call it creator,
Mm.
Jesus, a number of various things, angels. And so tell us more about how you refer to it as love.
So in my near-death experience, when I was introduced to love's purest form, it made total sense that love is in everything, through everything. It's what everything is made from. In that space where love and light and death and darkness dwell is the purest presence of love. So to me, when people would explain God or spirit or whatnot, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what that is. I know what that is. I can understand that. And so I just carried that through life. And I was raised in a non-denominational Christian home. And so, my prayers, I would pray to that love, the tangible, very real love in me that I knew was out there that came to me and prayers or meditations or, and little sweet little heart cries in the middle of the night, so that's what, that's why I refer to it as love, because it does say, that God is love, and I love that.
Well, I think it ties back potentially, it feels to me like, your 8-year-old self, when you're 8, you don't really have a lot of terms, for it or labels. And so you just know it as this pure love. And as you go through the rest of your life, you just continue to connect to it as the way you did the first time. And it's very simple. I'm not giving it descriptions or names or other names that might mean other things to other people. No, it's just the very simplest form of pure love. Each and every NDE that goes to the other side, one of the commonalities is they refer to that as unconditional love.
Yeah.
And yet they'll have, other names for various things as well. So it's super clean and clear with you. Now, you also mentioned the notion of being able to sense and feel and maybe hear inner voices that tell you things that are about to happen.
Yeah.
Was that extensive? Did that happen for a while and diminish? Do you still feel that now?
So I believe it's developed. So love in my experience has shown up in ways that I needed it to. So for example, in my near-death experience, I believe that figure was love itself. It was a person. I never feared it. Like, it was familiar enough to where I could speak to it, but not enough to where it was, scary, And so, when I came back, I would say that the reason I really needed like tangible voices or premonitions or something like that to connect with love and not to fear death specifically is because I wasn't as supported as a child. And so I really needed that with, that tangibility with love itself. And so I think it developed over time into the like healing gifts later. And then, almost, I wouldn't necessarily see, right now, I think that love, shows itself through people specifically. I know it sounds silly, but like I see love in people. Like I see love's just purest presence in people and how they react and things like that in response. So it's so much more tangible in my personal life and developing through my gifts, but also now with people and being able to connect with them and relate to them.
Yeah, and some folks, when they come back, they say they see auras around people, energy levels, and so on. And so that's pretty interesting as well. So you've got that. You can feel sometimes events that are happening, like when your grandma is passing, probably specifically in that case too, as they know they're transitioning to the other side, and you're kind of connected to the other side. You have some insight into that. Well, that is a great NDE story. Thanks for sharing that. Now, Act 2, this is where later in life you have this crazy medical miracle that astonishes people. I've talked to a few different folks and have some recordings on those, some podcasts on those as well. And it's amazing when the medical information substantiates the thing that couldn't possibly have happened, And oftentimes it makes doctors nervous because they like to know that when they do this, that's the outcome. And if they don't do that, then you don't get that outcome. But when you get a clean bill of health and it wasn't involved with them, they get a little squirrely, don't they?
Yeah.
So why don't we head in that direction and tell that amazing story?
Thank you so much. Well, it starts in 2015 and I was a little precursor. I was in a very long, very hard career in singing and modeling. And I just needed to get out of that and just kind of find a place to rest. And I ended up finding myself in Fort Worth, Texas in 2015. And I remember I was getting ready with my roommates to go out. I was buttoning up the front clasp of my bra, and my fingers on my left hand brushed something really scary, really hard, like a lump. And all of the thoughts that are going through your head and my head were going through that then. And I put it out of my mind because I said to myself, there's no immediate family history. I'm just going to put it out of my mind. And literally the next year in the spring and the fall, I got 2 phone calls that changed everything. And the first one was when my mother was diagnosed with the same cancer that killed her mother at her age, very quickly, almost within 3 months. And then the fall, my father called me and told me that he had 2 kinds of cancer, one that killed his sister quite quickly as well. And with it, my life, just to be completely honest, just started to spiral. And I'd put off gene testing that my mother had done for a BRCA2 gene mutation that gives you like a 70 to 80% chance of getting all the killer cancers, which is like breast, ovarian, etc. And it was the very early spring in 2017 where I got that testing done, and it came back and I was positive for it, and ended up that I was 3rd generation because my grandmother had it too. So the odds of getting all the killer cancers at any age basically it goes up after that. And so I find myself again dragging my feet until my friends kind of step in and have a little bit of an intervention. And it was a week before my 33rd birthday and 2017. And I was in the room, and I remember there's an assistant and a nurse, and the assistant was asking me these questions that just at the time felt, because of my emotional state of being, like a nail in the coffin every time I answered it. Like, what's your family history? What the diagnosis is? When did they die? What treatments did they do? And it just compounded it. And, to be honest, I was kind of having a hard time just kind of keeping it together, but I was doing all right. And finally she ended those questions, and this sweet, beautiful, very pregnant nurse, came up to me and said she was going to start the exam. And, I remember it was such a stark difference between how I felt and the aura in this room and how beautiful and loving and full of love she was. And she came over to my left side, lifted my arm, and started the examination. And she tried to kind of talk me through it. And it was fine until she hit a spot on my left side. And I very quickly and too strongly took both of her hands, lifted her off of me, and I said, "Ouch, that hurts. Don't do that again." And she looks at me and she looks at the assistant. The assistant leaves without saying a word, and she wiggles free, and she covers me back up and asked me where I was from again, just kind of looking at me. And I was, one, taken aback at what just happened, that it was confused. And then she was asking me this question again. And I had 0 time to react to anything because a tall, thin mechanical doctor flew into the room and displaced the nurse, introduced herself, and started the examination again, with much less forgiving hands, like just, and on top of that, she started asking me those questions again, and it just almost set me over an edge. So I was staring at the ceiling, like trying to answer her through gritted teeth. And that was until she hit that left side that nurse did again. And I tried to get her off of me. I tried to lift her arms off. And when I couldn't, I literally spat through my teeth. I was like, "Ouch, that hurts. Do not do that again." And I couldn't get her off of me. And she just looked at me and she started poking on and around something that almost felt like there was a screwdriver being driven into my rib cage. It just hurt so badly. And I was busting at the seams. And she was, saying, locations, sizes, things like that. And I just kind of hazed over, and she continued the examination. And when she was finished, these words started filtering through my haze of, bilateral, breast cancer, emergency lumpectomy, full mastectomy, chemo radiation. And they had like numbers, times, and everything. And I just kept staring at the ceiling until, I thought everyone left, the doctor and the assistant left, but, I heard this like rummaging in the back. And it was the nurse. And she took this false breast, came over to me, and she said, I want to show you something. And she took my hands, placed it on it with hers on top and pressed down. And I felt these lumps. They were like, let's say pea-sized, bigger or smaller, round, but movable, right? And she said, those are the lumps. They find, they take out, send off, and always come back as not cancerous. And she looked at me, quarter turned that false breast and placed my hands back on it with hers, and she pressed down, and I recoiled because it hurt. There was like this, let's say the tip of my pinky finger, rock hard, like solid, and ground to a point. And she said, these are the lumps that we find, we take out and send off, and almost always come back as breast cancer. And it sank in, and I don't even know if I was breathing at the time, but she took my hands, placed it on my chest, where that spot was where she and the doctor found, and she pressed down, and it didn't just hurt my fingers. It hurt like into my rib cage, but farther that into my soul and spirit. Cause I knew what she was trying to tell me, because that same lump, almost the same size, of that lump she showed me that they send off and always come back as cancer. That's exactly what I felt. And I just cried. I just broke in front of that woman. And she was just the most beautiful soul, because she sat there with me. And looking back, she was telling me, she was connecting with me. And, she let me cry for, I don't know how long, she waited outside for me to get ready, and she walked me out, and she said, it's going to be okay. And that was a Thursday, Brad. And I had 3 days, because they couldn't get me in for an emergency lumpectomy until Monday. And so it was Friday that I, called two of my friends, like brothers to me, and they came over to my house. I explained everything, for the first time to anyone. And so I told them, my history, what I was going to like facing, and the help I needed. And they watched me with this visual patience. And I didn't understand that until afterwards. They're like, Kara, thank you for sharing that with me. But, that's not true, because we're going to lay hands and pray over you, and we're going to heal you right now. And, I was raised in a non-denominational home, and I'd been to like, tent revivals and things where people laid hands on people and prayed. And I mean, they're still in wheelchairs, and people still kind of passed. And so, that's kind of where I was, but I didn't want to say no to them, because I loved them and they were trying to connect with me. So of course I said yes. And it was beautiful. Like, they prayed over me, and, I felt more connected with them than I ever had with anyone. But nothing happened. I didn't feel anything. And so I said thank you to them, sent them on their way. And then the next day, on Saturday, I woke up very early, and I called almost everyone I knew. And I asked for help for, getting to and from, appointments. I didn't have a car at the time. Someone was going to help me trying to like raise money for a car and, food and whatnot. And by the time I was finished with that, I didn't even know it, but it was like dark. And so I biked from my apartment to the house I was dog sitting at. And I parked the bike, walked up the stairs, and I remember, it's just to this day, the 3 dogs that I was dog sitting that are usually very hyperactive, very loud, almost, I think they knew, because when I opened the door, turned around and closed it, they didn't make any sound. And the only sound they made was like the tippy tap of their little claws, as like I walked all the way around the house on like hardwood floors, to the bedroom I was staying at. And Two of them went into the room to the left and laid down, and then one of them took her place on the bed. And I remember just looking at that bed, thinking of how tired I was and how I just couldn't imagine sleeping. So I ended up on the end of the bed, looking at the floor to wall window. And, I remember seeing the blacks and the blues of the shadows of the beautiful landscaping. And then you can tell it was a full moon because there was like moonlight on the water. And what would normally bring me so much peace was I just basically stared at nothing. And the longer I stayed there, the more I slipped into this, what I call the dwelling place of the divine in me. And this is the place where I would go and meditate and pray. And I would always, ask God or love, answers and ask questions and find answers there. And finally I just spoke out loud and I spoke to love. I said, I know you're good. You have showed up in my life far too many times for me to doubt that. But you know where I'm at. Like, the path I face. And the more I thought about it, I just told love, I was like, I don't want the fight. I don't want to go through what my grandparents and my parents have. I just don't want it. And, I basically said, love, you've gotten me this far and I know what's coming next and I'm fine with it. So, with you, I can face anything. And you all follow. And so I just kind of settled into knowing that was what I had chosen. And in me was this like stirring. And that always kind of happened when I needed to like reevaluate or to like think more on things or whatnot. And so I'm like, okay, great. I started asking questions like, okay, so what is this? Like, am I not missing something? Like, is there something going on I'm not seeing? And it just kept saying there's something else. There's something different. And the stronger it got, the more I was just so frustrated because normally I would get answers. Like I could hear the voice and it just wasn't there. So finally I remember getting to a fever pitch and just like literally screaming to love. And I was like, I don't know what you want from me. If there's something else, I'm not seeing it. I don't know. I'm not going to go through this path. I do not want this. And my brothers came over and prayed over me. Like that didn't happen. It didn't work. And so like, if there's another way, you're going to have to show me. You have got to show up tangibly like you always do. You've got to tell me what to do. And just then, like 2 Bible verses dropped into my soul. The first one made a lot of sense. And it was like faith like a child. And that was something I clung to as a child to like, of course, like work through things. But the second one just floored me. It was in the Bible, they would have people go before a church and have people lay hands on them and pray for healing and they would get it. And I remember literally saying, love, I was raised. Look, I remember those stories when I was raised. I remember those people. They're still in wheelchairs. And my brothers came over. And so I'm sure I'm missing this. Like, I'm hearing this incorrectly. And I sat there for, I don't know how long, just listening, like, okay, so let's do this again. And it never changed. And so the next day I went to the same church my brothers went to because it was the only church I knew that had that laid hands on people. And I remember walking in and I had a bit of a history. Like I'd been to the church before and I had, we just decided it wasn't a place for me. And, due to just differences and, belief systems, very similar to when, they spoke about like the power of God and healing and things like that in general. They said that no one could, attain the power of God or healing unless it came from them because they're apostles and God tells them who to give to. And I was like, well, I would disagree, respectfully. But so you can imagine me going into this church, speaking to this pastor's wife saying, so what you call God and I call love told me to come somewhere and have, people laying hands on me and pray and heal me of cancer. And so she looked at me and one of like, why are you here? And fine kind of situation. So I was in the front pew sitting down, music started and I was just exhausted. I was basically like holding myself up, like leaning over, holding myself up in the pew with my head hung. And the pastor's wife came over with all the people they had anointed. And they laid hands on me and started praying and singing, speaking in tongues. And I'm fairly certain 2 of them were trying to exorcise something out of me. And which is fine. I wanted to be as open as possible because love told me to do this. And again, I have an entire life of experiences where if love told me something, I'm going to listen. And so I tried to be as open as I possibly could. But to be completely honest, the longer they were there, the harder I cried because nothing was happening and I didn't feel anything. And so eventually they all left and I had 2 hands on me. One on the small of my back, on the very opposite side of that left breast lump, and then another one, my friend Chris. And with my head hung and just tears, crying, I remember closing my eyes and going back into that dwelling place. And I remember saying to love, I said, I still know you're good. Even though this didn't work, I still know you're good. And I know the road that I'm going to walk. And I know with you, I can do anything. I've done anything. And so whatever your will is, I accept. And the moment I accept left my lips, this palm width beam of power came from that small hand on my back, beelined through my rib cage, split in 2, and then hovered over both breast lumps for songs. And my head was hung and I was already deep within myself. And so the world just faded away. And I remember being able to see it. It had like a pulse. It was white and had a pulse. And it was just like love itself was just flowing through me. And eventually I remember it dissipating into me. Like it didn't disappear. It just dissipated into me. And I was kind of coming back into like reality because it was just so beautiful and consuming, almost like a vision or a trance. And I remember realizing my lips were moving, but I couldn't understand what I was saying until I kind of came to and opened my eyes. And I remember I was repeating, I accept this. I accept this. I accept this. And I took in the room and it was, I don't know if it was more of a shock of that than what actually happened, because like they were still singing, people were still praying, like, and no one knew other than me that like what happened. And so basically I reached over my hand, I took that, the wrist of the person, the little hand, that power came from. And I remember like pulling them over and sitting them down next to me. And it was a 13-year-old girl. And I just took in the scene, because this little girl, wasn't like someone who goes to church, like her family didn't go to church. Like she was from a very broken home that needed a safe place to go that Sunday. And it hit me that my childlike faith and her childlike faith met and a miracle happened. And I knew that's what I was here for. And so I remember looking at her, side note, and I remember saying, to her, I said, honey, I want you to know something, that, what I call love and they call God, I believe used you and your faith to heal me of cancer today. And I want you to understand that is as that's as powerful as you and love are together. And I want you to never forget that. Because I was hoping that she would know from that statement the kind of love and power that I know of love together.
So did this girl know when you talked to her, and by the way, I love how you said the childlike faith that you both had, which brought you together. That's such a powerful feeling also.
Yeah.
Did she know, did you confirm with her, did she feel that power out of her hand? Did she know that she was a part of that healing?
No, like she looked at me and she was like, "Oh, okay." And I connected with her a little bit after, like I think I went to the church one more time after that, and I was like, "Are you okay? How you doing?" and things like that. And I kind of just mentioned it. I didn't want to scare her or bring it up or overwhelm her or whatnot, but no, she never said that she felt anything. And I think that that's the faith part.
By the way, she was the conduit of the healing,
Mm-hmm.
unbeknownst to her potentially. But the fact is that you let her know that that happened. Now
Yeah.
she can be more open to it and continue as she grows older to see if she has, more opportunities to participate in things
Right.
that amazing. That's very cool.
Mm.
And so now you feel that was the healing. And if it is, this is probably still the weekend, Sunday, I guess.
Mm.
Are you telling me the next day, Monday, you went back into the doctor's office? And oh my God, what happened next?
Yeah, it's radical because like that was Sunday, and then I was the very first person on Monday to go in, and I went with a gal that I knew at the time because she wouldn't let me go alone. And I remember walking in gowned up, and it was a 3D mammogram, ultrasound for an emergency lumpectomy. And I went in for the mammogram, and there was a nurse in the back of the room, and she had this folder, and she was flipping through the folder and looking for things on the desk. And she was so consumed with that, like she didn't even notice I came in. So I kind of cleared my throat and introduced myself and told her that I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. Can you tell me what to do, kind of thing. And she looked at me and she said, where are your breast lumps? And I was shocked, and I just started like just word vomiting. I'm like, this is the clinic I went to. They did measurements, like they wrote it down in the chart. And I just kept jarbling words at her. And so finally I think she got irritated and she closed the chart and said, we're going to scan everything then. And so, she did. And I went back into the waiting room. And then maybe 10 minutes, I went into the ultrasound room. And again, there's a nurse in the back of the room, an ultrasound machine between us. And she was like, she had the chart in her hand, and then she had like a screen, and she looked at the chart, she looked at the screen, zoomed in, zoomed out, and did a couple of these swipes. And I kind of cleared my throat and introduced myself again. I said, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. Could you please tell me what to do? And she looked at me. She said, where are your breast lumps? And I said, I get very literal when I think that, things aren't happening the way they should. And so I basically looked at her and was like, listen, I went to a clinic. They measured me, and I was just in a 3D mammogram, which I know picks up literally the most minuscule part of anything that you need to see. And so, it's in that chart, and I'm going to need you to do your job to find those breast lumps because I don't know where they're at. And I don't blame her, but she looks at me and she closes the chart up, and she's like, we're going to scan everything then. And I said, all right, great. And so she did. And as she was leaving, she told me that the doctor would be in to finalize everything. And he'd be in a moment. And so I was on the bench of the ultrasound machine trying to calm myself down because I knew what happened next. Like, they give you shots, they find them, the lumps, they give you shots, they open you up with a scalpel, and so you back up. And I'm not a fan of any of those things. And they take that lump, they send it off, and they tell you like how progressed the cancer is. And so as I'm preparing myself, trying not to faint, this doctor comes in, short, silver-haired, lab coat, introduces himself. He's quite nice. And before I can say anything, he says, welcome in, Miss Kara. He leans in, pats my left knee and says, thank you for coming in. We'll see you when you're 40. And tries to turn around and leave the room. And with everything that's happened up until this point, I lose my mind. I get up, a 6'5" 5'4" woman. He couldn't have been over 5'8". I stop him, twirl him around, and I shake him. And I said, I don't know what's going on here, but you've lost my breast lumps. This whole place has lost my breast lumps. So, sir, you're going to poke around and you're going to find them like that the other doctor did. And you're going to take them out and you're going to send them off and you're going to tell me I don't have breast cancer. And his face to this day, it's funny now. I didn't understand it then, but he shook off my arms and he kind of steadied me, grabbing my shoulders back. And he said, ma'am, I have no idea what you're talking about. But we have done every test, that we can do. There are no breast lumps. There's nothing to find. And then he leaves the room. And I sat there and stared at where he was for the longest time until I ended up just inadvertently like stumbling back and like hitting the bench, I remember, and literally with shaking hands. I remember placing my hands where that nurse did with me, that spot. And I remember pressing down and literally it was a crater about that size in my rib cage and a bruised sensation. There was nothing else to find. And I remember I wanted to cry so badly, but I couldn't because I could not imagine. I just couldn't. It was so far beyond my comprehension, that love, because I thought I knew something had happened. I just thought they would find the breast lumps, send them off, and then like it was nothing. But it dissolved, like love dissolved death itself within me. And I to this day, it is just overwhelmingly beautiful. It's just, I can't even cry about it. It's just so absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And, it's crazy because it's a medical miracle. And when you look at the charts on Monday and they scan multiple times, there's nothing there. But if you compared them to Thursday's scans,
Yes.
I'm sorry, there was something there. Now, it didn't seem like the doctors came forward and they go, Thursday, Monday, medical miracle. They just said, see you when you're 40.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a miracle. And thank you for sharing that story. It's beautiful. I love the NDE, the notion of being connected to love all the time, really being connected to love. And then that childlike connection with the 13-year-old that was the conduit of that miracle and that energy that healed you. So thank you for that. And next I've got this section called Heart's First Whisper. Okay. Yeah. And in this, I've got some questions prepackaged for you, and it's your heart that's going to answer. No mind or thoughts are required. How does that sound?
I love it.
Beautiful. Here's the first question. When you first realized the light was life itself, what single word best names that recognition, and why that word?
Oh, home. It's like coming home. It's like remembering yourself. It's remembering of what it's supposed to be like. I don't know if it's like one word, because it was almost as if it was the way it was meant to be always. Like this is just our normal state. It's like coming home. And so I think that love kind of encompasses that in a way. So love would be the word, because love is home, love is familiar, love is connection beyond words.
Yeah, that's great. Oftentimes as I talk about this, the notion of home, you're not quite sure where home is. Is it on this side? Is it on that side? But then oftentimes you find if I have love and I'm connected to love and love is inside me, I'm always home, wherever I am. Having love inside is the place of home, or the description of home. So that is amazing. So thanks for that. And that brings us to number 2, which is the figure never spoke aloud, yet you heard, are you ready inside? How do you discern that inner voice today from fear or wishful thinking?
It's very different. It is so, so different. And I attribute that to the fingerprints of love that showed up, like teaching me how to listen in each and every one of them. Again, I go over it in my For Miracles book, but every single time, it was different. So that's why I call them fingerprints. Every time that love showed up, it was a different connection, teaching me how love can speak to me, how I can hear, like either like visions, premonitions, like actual, voices, and being able to speak back and whatnot. And then, visceral feelings. 'Cause there's a difference between feelings. Like I have feelings, right? And then I have like thoughts, but then there is a knowing. There is a knowing with where everything aligns, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's undeniable. And that's the only way I can explain it. I think that people who've gone through it or experienced it can like, they're like, oh yeah, they resonate. But like, it is just, you cannot deny it. It is literally undeniable. You just know.
That's pretty cool. A lot of times you have thoughts that come and go and you're not sure where they come from.
Yeah.
You might have some feelings and emotions that pour through you. You might have an intuition that's sort of trying to tell you something. And then there are people that sort of channel various things. It's like all this, like you're turning the radio dial, through all of these possible notions of communication. I guess at first it could be confusing, but if you do take the time and kind of tune into each one and know the distinction between them, then that can really help you, to know that. That's for sure. So that's a beautiful way to put that. Now, thank you for that. And that brings us to 3. Now, this is interesting. You've said the realm you entered was fear-free. It's like not possible on that side, right? Now, what does choosing love look like on a day when fear feels justified here? Is there a small, repeatable act for you?
So what I do, I meditate and I do breath work. Some people call it prayer if you want to. That's what I do to keep that channel open, because I found in my life, I'm just bombarded by distractions. Like, of course, like we have social media and like advertising, things like that keeps us distracted. And it's just so overwhelming sometimes. And they just make it really easy to focus on fear or lack or scarcity. So basically, I make myself meditate and pray and journal in any way that I'm led to daily. Sometimes it's journaling. Sometimes it's meditating. Sometimes it's just going on a long bike ride or a walk and being able to just literally just verbalize something. And that has just made such a difference. And, it's free. Like you can do it anytime you want to, as long as you have time to sit down, be quiet, and just kind of listen.
Well, I loved how you described the fact that when you're on the other side, just like fear is not possible. It's just so much love pouring over you. There's just no room for it. And yet you come back here and it's ever present in most people's lives. Often folks say, as we do our pre-life planning, we pick these lives here to have experiences we couldn't have on the other side. It's not possible to navigate the sloth of all the fear and the challenges that we have on the other side. So we do that here for, experiences, wisdom, growth, and various things like that. Yeah. And so we know we live in that fear space here, but if we somehow can create a world as much as we could with unconditional love sort of wrapped around us, we'll sort of minimize the fear experience. And maybe that's what kind of our higher order objective is on this side. Get tossed into this fearful environment and then navigate and float above it with an objective in mind, which is very, heartfelt.
Agreed.
Yes. All right. Well, that brings us into number 4. If that figure represented your higher self or love manifest, what part of you are you cultivating now to meet her again?
I believe that my highest calling, and I would hope everyone else's, is to live their joy, live their passion, live what they love to do, and to really connect with that. Again, I like meditate and pray and things like that, but I follow that daily. Like I follow those promptings. I follow what lights me up. And I found that that's really all that matters. I think that is the purpose that I have in doing that in my daily life, but also trying to remind people to do the same.
Yes. And you mentioned prompting in there, which I really like because it really feeds into the next question, which is, I know journaling and automatic writing became medicine for you. And so what prompt never fails to open up that wellspring?
I know it's silly, but I always, I open my journaling with love speak to me, or, love, what would you have me do? Or, where will love lead me today? Where will you lead me today? And it almost always starts with gratitude. Cause that's just the first thing that pops in my head. And then I find myself, journaling or even in meditation. I find myself going through all the things that I had forgotten that were so lovely and so beautiful and so positive in my life. And then it leads to more things of like, oh, I could do this. Or, oh, I remember I loved doing this, or, oh, I'll reach out to this person. And so that's, I think, that's really the prompt that kind of always gets me.
Yeah. I like that prompt. Where will love take me today? It's almost kind of like dialing the number of God, it's like, that's the prompt that opens the channel and the connection to love, and who knows what's going to come out of that wellspring that day. And I love the journaling notion too, because you can go back in time, like you mentioned, and you can revisit these experiences
Yeah.
you've had. And not only there's some really cool ones, which, is very heartfelt to revisit, there might be some challenging ones in there as well.
Mm.
And that's okay, because it might remind you, how far you've come, along this path of this human experience you've had. Well, that's pretty cool too. I love that. A lot of people are journeying. And by the way, we would recommend this to all of our viewers. Boy, just pick up the journal and start writing. And it might feel automatic or it might feel painful, but put those words down, because it's a time capsule. Later on in life, you're going to reach back into there and be glad that you did.
Mm.
That brings us to number 6, which is nature and animals helped you reconnect. Share one recent sign and the practical decision it guided.
Oh gosh. So I have seasons in my life, and the recent seasons specifically, like let's say since 2020, have been what I now know to be spirit animals. And so, the main one is, oddly enough, well, not oddly enough, because once you figure it out why, it makes a lot of sense. It's a great blue heron. And great blue herons are very, very tall, long-legged, regal creatures, and they symbolize waiting and patience and being above the water and kind of having a perspective and going with the flow and things like that. And so I found myself doing way more research on animals that I kept seeing all the time, because I was like driving in the middle of Dallas and I'm like, why is there a great blue heron in the middle of the town? And so that's one of them. And it's in this next phase, while I'm so focused on sharing my story, living my truth, and things like that. There's a part of a great blue heron's life that it can look like solitude. It can look like it's alone, but really it's on a path. And there's always a flock of them, but it can look like it's on its own, and it's not. And so that was really beautiful to be reminded of that, and to know that if, me or others are feeling like that, it's usually seasonal and usually for a purpose. And you always have what you need to thrive, to live, your life the way you're meant to. Because Karens are a little odd. They've got long, funny little stocky legs, and they got like long necks. And some people can think of them as funny looking birds, but they're beautiful. They're really just so beautiful once you find their lifestyle and their purpose.
And it's great that you know the signs that are around you. Oftentimes people can be so busy in life looking at their phones and whatever, that the signs are all there and you don't see them at all. You don't connect it to them, right? You're not connected to them. And so to know the signs that are meaningful to you, and then to recognize them really, kind of sends a message to you, and hopefully each and every day. Well, and that brings us to number 7. Now here, this is about your healing, right? So in one paragraph, sort of the before, the moment, and then the after in your healing, what shifted in you that stayed?
Oh, my healing? Faith. My gosh. I had to have faith to get through my childhood. I would kind of share a little bit about that with you, and to really know that I knew love, know that I was going to follow love's path and love's guidance within. And I did that since I was a child. And it just reiterated that beyond contestation, that it's faith that really makes a difference, that really matters, that makes the most difference. And so, my faith and love in our relationship is monumental. It is just unshakable, and I don't fear death. Obviously I didn't do that before, but love's guiding and love's leading and love's relationship with me.
Well, yeah, faith is just a powerful word on its own. It's amazing how your experiences with the NDE and then the miracle, connecting to love and the intuitions that you've had and the signs, all those sorts of things through the course of your life have just reinforced your faith and your connection with that.
That's so true.
And that is actually what brings you here today in the book that you wrote.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
And so I think that's very powerful.
Thank you
that
so
brings
much.
us to number 8. If a listener or a viewer feels not spiritual enough to find the stillness you found, what's the first little practice they can do in a short period of time to get connected?
I love this. So I am a huge proponent of breath work, because even if you're not a spiritual person, breath work is just, it's a way to regulate your nervous system, right? And it's all about relaxing. It's all about releasing. It's all about being able to hear and listen to yourself or to love within. And so there's one I use on a regular basis, no matter, I try to use this, in an elevator or walking down the street or like, but in meditation, I found it's very helpful to, get into a place of stillness. And so it's about breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 8, and then breathing out for 4 and resting, and then doing that, that cycle. And if you can meditate with your eyes open, but I usually do it when it's closed in a more of a quieter room. It really can get you to the point of, stillness and rest that your body needs. And whether or not you have, a huge download or just are able to rest for a moment and like recalibrate, it makes such a difference.
Well, that's pretty powerful, especially for those who haven't tried it before, to know the impact that would provide. Now, for some folks, a textual description like you just gave, a verbal description is useful. Others like to see a demonstration.
Yeah.
Why don't we see a demonstration today? Exactly that.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So usually to get people comfortable just in their chairs. Whether they're laying down or sitting, it's always nice. Having your feet on the floor or cross-legged, it's fine. But we take one big breath and we breathe it all the way out. And then we're going to breathe in through our nose for 4. And we're going to hold for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and breathe out for 4. And just rest until you naturally want to breathe in again. You're going to breathe in for 4. And you're going to hold for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you're going to breathe out for 4. And rest. And what you should usually feel is your shoulders drop, and you kind of fall back into your seat or down into what you're sitting on or laying on. And if you continue to do that, it'll help clear and center you, or at least ground you enough to, again, like I said, it's a very good stillness and rest practice.
Thank you for that. It felt very restful for myself. Hopefully the viewers also. What's interesting about this is that your breathing is an automatic thing. So is your heart. You're just processing the day and those things are happening. You don't notice them. In fact, because they're happening automatically and you don't have to focus on them, you're probably focused on a bunch of other stressful things and fear-based things, and those are just causing tension in you. But when you focus on the breathing, you can't really think about the other stressful things. So not only does the breathing help you, but the fact that you're not even thinking about any of the other stressful things mean you got a double whammy of relaxation and going back to core. I love it.
Love that.
Well, let's go on to number 9, our final question. And that is, looking back at the 8-year-old you, what blessing would you whisper to her as she lies in that garage between worlds?
Gosh, that's such a beautiful question. The one thing that I have taken from when I was 8 years old is love is undeniable. And just to follow that, just follow the love's leading. It has you. It has never left you. It will never forsake you. And it's real. Oh, that's such a beautiful question. It always makes me want to cry, because looking at the innocence of an 8-year-old little girl just filled with love, lying there and just having the faith and the trust, just believe and follow that. That's really what I would probably tell my little self.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I agree. The innocence and the vulnerability of a child, in those wonder years is amazing. And yet everything seemed to have worked out marvelously.
Yeah,
and
it did.
You don't want to really change anything that you've ever done in the past, because it's made you who you are today, the hard, lessons as well. But it is quite interesting to sort of peek back into that world, knowing and thinking about the difference about knowing everything you know now and the wisdom and the experience you've had compared to when you were 8 years old. So it's a
Yeah.
fabulous story, the NDE and the miracle. As we wrap up today, is there any parting words of wisdom you'd like to share with the viewers?
Yes, I want everyone to know how absolutely miraculous they are. And if I could just say like the one thing, like it is literally that you are a walking miracle. The fact that it is my personal belief that love is the essence of everything. Love, like everything is made of the essence of love, like literally to the nanoparticles of the subatomic realm of quarks. If you've never studied it, study it. It's fascinating. But to the galaxy and the universe's edges that are continuously like expanding. Like it is, to me, miraculous that we're in this universe, in this galaxy, in this particular planet that only has life, that each and every person here is literally like a 14 trillion to 1 chance statistically to be here. And then it keeps going up and up every day you're here. Like it is an absolute miracle that you're walking, talking, breathing right now. And you have a purpose. And that purpose is love. Just follow love. Whatever it is that you want to do it. There's nothing you can't do, because like literally I believe that this entire universe, this life is literally just miracles stacked on miracles. And if we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, we can see that and to be reminded that love gave us this opportunity just to be with love itself, to live this life in its fullest, to its fullest. And you have a purpose and the world needs you. And I'm so glad you're here.
Very inspiring.
Yeah.
Thank you for wrapping up with that. And also giving folks the homework assignment of going back and investigating quarks and seeing, the essence of the universe.
Fascinating.
Well, Kara, you know what? Thank you for bringing us into that fear-free love and for showing how it can be lived here through stillness and simple practices and courage in hard moments. From that first encounter with the light as a child to the hard-won healing and daily practices that followed, your willingness to share so openly gave many of us language for what we've felt. And I know it will stay with listeners and viewers long after the episode. Now, for those who want to dive deeper into your story and healing journey, where can they connect with you?
KaraMarlene.com is my website. It's got my book on there. It's got my story as well, just kind of me, who I am. And then it also has my conference as well. But if you can connect with me there. It's got all my socials as well. So
I hear you have this amazing conference coming up very soon. Let's hear more of the details on that.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for asking. So I have a conference. It's called the Truth Tellers Conference in Dallas, Texas in February of 2026. And it is going to be headlining speakers like Benny Tolman, Scott Drummond, Jeff Olson, Barbara Bartolome, and myself. And this is, if you could imagine, I wanted to feel like coming home to people who know and are grounded in love, but also to yourself, because this is where truth and transformation meet. And what I've found is once I realized like my near-death experience and then my life and my connection with love, it's my truth, right? And that was transformative to me. And I put that into a book. And again, that was just a continuous transformational process. And as I share my story and others that I know are sharing their stories, it's transforming people. Like I have just never seen such beautiful connections. And I wanted to create a space for that. And so the Truth Tellers Conference is a 2-day event, and you can find all of the information on my website, karamarlene.com. And it says Truth Tellers Conference on the top. And there's an early bird special for general admission. And then you can get all the tickets, especially like streaming online as well. So I invite everyone, if you have questions, contact me through my website. But again, karamarlene.com is where you can find all that.
And the event itself is being held in Dallas.
Yes,
so
Dallas,
if you're
Texas.
in the 50 to 100 mile radius, you should pop in. And if you're not, the streaming link is there for sure as a
Yeah.
choice. What is the venue there in Dallas?
So we have it's a church that we have. We have very good connections with some beautiful people, and we've got the main room, and then there'll be vendor space and other opportunities in rooms for like healings or meditations, massages, things like that to really connect. There's this really awesome like light healer that uses lasers and crystals at the same time. It's fascinating.
Wow, that's a sort of multi-dimensional experience folks will have there for sure. And will you have copies of your book there?
I will, yes. Meant for Miracles will be there, and as will all the keynote speakers and their books as well.
Oh, good. Well, hey, let's just take a minute and hear more about your book.
Yeah, so Meant for Miracles is my book. It's my near-death experience, my miraculous healing, and then Love's relentless pursuit of me. It's basically, I share like Love's fingerprints of the divine, and how that those moments developed this beautiful relationship that ended up allowing me to be healed, and then leading me down this path of learning about the universe and how miraculous it is, and how absolutely magical it is that you all are, like, we're all here, that this world is, and how that we're all meant for miracles.
Yeah, that's great, because in this podcast, we don't have time to cover everything in the book, of course. So I love the fact that you have thought through that so much in such detail and captured it in the book in greater detail and made it available to folks. So all these links will be in the description below. I love it. So it's kind of like, well, after we're gone, who knows, this podcast might still be hanging around somewhere, and your book will certainly be here to help folks for sure. So Kara, thank you for sharing your message and your light with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you again for the opportunity. I'm so grateful to be here.
Thank you. And hey, to our listeners, if Kara's story moved you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and let us know in the comments. I get in there and grab every comment I can and pop a nice reply in it. And if this episode spoke to your heart, share it with someone who might need a little light today. And as Ram Dass said, and we all know and love, we're just walking each other home.
Oh, I love that.
I love that. And until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and go beyond the illusion to discover your true self. Take care, everyone, and bye for now.